Hey loved ones, I'm Keyosha. It's pronounced Keyosha, meaning key of the ocean. I'm a life coach and a motivational speaker, known for my company Key Coaching, which focuses on self-betterment. In this podcast, I'm going to share with you what I've learned from being a coach. I'll provide you the keys not just to survive, but to thrive. Hey, and welcome back to Wisdom Wednesdays. Grab your pen, grab your notebook. Today's topic of discussion will be the bystander syndrome. The reason why I bring this topic today is because I've witnessed something, and I'm going to dig into it. But first, I'd like to define the bystander syndrome for those listening. The bystander syndrome, also known as the Genovese effect, is when a person witnesses a crime, emergency, or an individual of need of help and does nothing. So, yes, things are kind of different this time because I have been filled with gratitude and blessed with the opportunity to shoot a commercial in Mexico. So I've actually been putting off a little bit this week's episode. I am coming to y'all with a heavy heart. I have been experiencing personally the bystander syndrome, but because I'm exploratory and analytical, I really wanted to break it down. And so some of the things that tie into the bystander syndrome that I am experiencing firsthand right now is a difference or contrast in power dynamics, and sometimes a systemic racism, as well as a difference in gender inequality. So when gender inequality takes place in a power dynamic that is unequal, where there's underlying systemic racism, it's kind of like the cocktail of chaos. Quite simply put, we don't actually realize often, and I'm speaking from myself, because a lot of individuals often feel like the topic of race is shoved down their throat by people of color. It's not as black and white as that, though. Sometimes there's a gray area. And this bystander syndrome is the gray area. As a person of color myself, I know what it looks like when I'm experiencing something. I can understand how it feels. And I'm very self-actualized and self-aware. So I name my feelings and I can understand what's happening for me moment to moment. This unique scenario that I am currently in has totally shifted my understanding of what it looks like when someone is experiencing something and what it feels like as the person who is, in that state of maybe urgency or in need, and they can't actually receive that. They're not receiving what they need, because we all obviously have our basic needs. It's really important right out of the gate to also say that we need to become aware of our human rights in general as a people. The more likely that you are aware of your human rights, the more likely that you're going to uphold them. When you understand your human rights, and there are 30 of them, you then understand what you are just like deserving of, no matter what, no matter which country that you live in, no matter what your gender is or how you identify in your ethnicity, the human rights are a blanket that covers all of us as human beings. And they're upheld and honored by the UN. And I mean, when we're talking about different power dynamics and different wages and different positions, managerial and employees, different genders, toxic masculinity, it's a really hard thing to unpack just because there's so much to unpack there. But more simply put, just imagine me. I work in acting. If you've missed my other episodes, it's a creative outlet for me, and I've mostly done commercial acting. And so when you're doing a commercial and you have like a hero role, you're doing a lot of the speaking. So the camera's on you, and all of your actions need to be calculated. But when I shoot in Canada, it looks a lot different. One of the first observations that I made is that catering is kind of like unlimited and so great. I think that Canadians know that when you have a healthy, like happy tummy, you're kind of just happy. And so it's not like they just give us junk. They give us delicious food, whether or not it be like a kale cooked cuisine or something of the sort. It's just, it's free, it's benevolent, and, you know, you can kind of eat as much as you like kind of deal. In Mexico, I have witnessed that they kind of just try to give you whatever food, but they're not always feeding you enough. So I might go on set for 14 hours and have one meal break. That doesn't work in Canada. That would be a liability issue. And people would be furious because the standard has been set there. And so there's nowhere else to go. And to be able to dip below that standard is nearly impossible because we have that healthy work environment that's already in place and has been upheld for so many years. Another difference that I've noticed as well is that we treat the staff or the employees like human beings. We treat them like human beings. If you're a background actress, which I have been, if you're an extra, which I have been, if you're a supporting role, which I have been, or if you are a hero role, which I am currently doing right now, the way that you get treated across the board is like a human being. And so there's no difference in position in the power dynamic. I don't feel like just because I'm not in a hero role that someone's going to be raising their voice with me, using disrespectful tones towards me, or going so far as to call me names. And I think that when we start to observe different scenarios, we can experience something called a culture shock. And so an English-speaking commercial is shooting in a Spanish-speaking country. There's already going to be a language barrier. We would know how it feels to have a language barrier. It's frustrating. It takes a little bit more time to express yourself, and sometimes you might not even be able to express yourself to the fullest because some things get lost in the mix. Humor is different. Sayings are different. An example, knowing something like the palm of your hand or the back of your hand, and knowing something like the pocket on your pants. That's just a transition from English to French. The palm of your hand is just a transition from American to Canadian. And they both speak English, so sayings can be different. I mean, even in Canada, if I was in Ontario and I saw a lineup of people and I decided to take place near the beginning instead of waiting my turn, that would be called butting. But when I moved from Ontario to BC, they pointed out that somebody else was budging the line. It's such a minor detail, but it can be a difference in a communication, in an understanding, in a feeling of connection, because communication is connection. And the language barrier that I have been witnessing here right now is an added layer to what's taking place, but it's been budgeted for. We have translators. We have people who are able to, in a certain amount of time, alleviate any kind of misunderstandings. And so, with that being said, I just want to run through it again with you guys. The bystander syndrome, also known as Genovese effect, is when a person witnesses a crime, emergency, or an individual in need and does nothing. I have been watching how an American individual is treating multiple and many Mexican individuals. And it's hard to witness because I know what inequality looks like from being a Black woman. But it's even more difficult to witness and do nothing. Because I'm the kind of person that if I see something is wrong, I will say something. If you see something, say something, right? It's in our airports, it's on our trains, it's on our buses. If you see something, say something. But the reason why I feel like this is a topic desperate for discussion is because it doesn't always feel that simple. When there is a difference in a power dynamic and you are supposed to be, that other English-speaking person who comes in as the talent and alleviates the stress of setting up the set because the set is already set up. And so now we get to see all of that work that we put in turn out really well. But when that talent is a person of color who has been witnessing systemic racism and the struggle of biting my tongue until it feels like it's going to bleed because I see something is off and I want to say something. You then begin to realize that maybe not everything is as black and white or as simple as we may think it is. Because, of course, I don't want to lose my position. But I think in more than one place, we're put into a corner, or we're between a rock and a hard place of deciding whether or not to continue working for the money that helps us survive, or to speak out about social injustice that you yourself has experienced. And you're sick of saying something because it's just so big of a problem. But then you're faced with not being able to say something. It's an internal warfare. And I can imagine that I'm not the only person who's experienced that. And so what I want people to do with this is do their best to take themselves out of themselves. Okay? And just try to understand what it might look like when you're experiencing social injustice, but other people are being re-traumatized. That's what it is. That's what's happening in that moment. Is the re-traumatization is forcing the bystanders into a place of fight, flight, or freeze. And so in a survival state, some become silent. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to create excuses for anyone. I know that the scenario doesn't make it right. The ends doesn't justify the means. But with this perspective, I am realizing now where a lot of the problem lies in other areas of people's lives. Not only social injustice, but even growing up in an abusive household, for example. The other siblings who see their sisters or brothers being harmed by their caregiver or their protector can obviously create a rift, or being parented by someone who is not mentally stable, or so far as to being parented by somebody who is a narcissist. These are the things that can cause long-term trauma. I'm going to be discussing in the next couple of episodes divine feminine energy and divine masculine energy, because they tie into these things. But simply stating divine feminine energy is like a understanding of unconditional, devotional, loyal love. So you feel that from your mother, and then you go out into the world and you know what it feels like. And then, your masculine energy, you experience that safety and security from your father, and then you go out into the world and you know what it feels like. And so when you're going out into the world, putting your best foot forward, but you've had trauma in your emotional, your maternal emotional connection, then you don't really know what love looks like, and you don't know how to love yourself. But if you've experienced trauma in your emotional paternal relationship, then you feel like you're not safe. You feel like you can't trust everyone. There's something that's going to go wrong around any corner, and it can manifest as anxiety. And so if you have a combination of both of these things, and you're placed in a position where you're witnessing trauma, which is re-traumatization, then you can fall into the mental and emotional state of the Genovese effect, the bystander syndrome. Now, simply put, because it's very important for us to walk away with some sort of a solution, I don't feel as heavy a heart just knowing that someone will hear this. And I mean, quite frankly, I don't have a script. I have topics I want to discuss, and I've got pointers that I put down. And then the rest of it is from the heart, because I want to help any human that hears this. That's my goal. So I know what would be helpful is some kind of solution. And I like to think about the tools that we use to protect ourselves through certain scenarios that might happen as the shield. And then I like to think about, that aftermath of trying to alleviate or heal that trauma as more of the arms that catch you when you fall, or whatever, the trampoline outside of the window of the burning building. And so the shield that I'd like to provide you with is the mantra when you're experiencing the lack of safety and security, you're anxious, maybe you're out in the world and you don't feel like you can surrender. To actually tell yourself, I am safe, I am secure, I am sturdy. I am safe, I am secure, I am sturdy. I am safe, I am secure, I am sturdy. Just to bring yourself back to center. Because not all of our anxieties provoked by the same thing. And the other exercise that it's important for you to practice when you know that you aren't sure how to love yourself or what love looks like in others. I stand in front of the mirror with my hand on my heart and look myself in the eyes and say, I love you, no matter what, no matter today, no matter tomorrow, no matter yesterday, I love you, and I always will. I love you no matter what, no matter today, no matter tomorrow, no matter yesterday. I love you and I always will. I love you no matter what, no matter today, no matter tomorrow, no matter yesterday. I love you and I always will. Thanks for joining me, you guys, in this moment. If you found any of this information useful, feel free to click the links below. Also, you can follow me on any platform at Keyosha 333. And song suggestion of the week is Free by Blue Canarino Remix. It is an amazing song. You're gonna love it. All right. See you next week.